In this episode, I'm going to take a walk down memory lane and think about some of the stores that I loved buying toys at as a kid. So stick around. Hello and welcome to my side laundry room. My name's Rob, and this week I'm going to talk about some of my favorite places to buy toys when I was a kid growing up in the 80s. Now, one of the greatest things is we have a common bond that ties us all together with these toys, but maybe our experiences on how we got them and where we got them changes. Now, some of the stores I mentioned might be regional, they might not. They might be in whatever state you grew up in or whatever country you live in. But to me, they were special and they were just part of my very small universe growing up. Now, first, I want to talk about Kmart. Now, there were many Kmarts around in different towns and stuff growing up, but the one that has the biggest impression on me is the one that opened up in my town. Now, I believe the year was 1985 when Kmart opened up. They built a nice new strip mall, if you will, on an old plot of farmland that was right next to the highway. And I remember the night that it opened because they had huge spotlights in the parking lot that you could see their beams from miles around. I remember standing on my front porch and just seeing the beams of light play against the clouds, and it was breathtaking. I'd never seen anything like that, except for in Batman comics with the bat signal, but this was the first time I ever seen anything like that in real life. Now, I remember earlier that day, a kid that lived down the street from me, him and his family went. And what did he come back with? The Snake Eyes version 2 with Timber. It blew my mind because this was the first time that we had seen Snake Eyes as a ninja with his katana, and he still had his Uzi, but totally different redesign from the basic commando figure that I had known and loved up to that point. Now, that evening, I believe my parents had friends over, and my dad and the friend and me all went to Kmart. And the one thing I had on my mind was to get that Snake Eyes. Unfortunately, I didn't. I honestly forget what figures I left with that evening, but still to this day, it's burned in my mind that I did not get Snake Eyes, and I never got that Snake Eyes. I still don't have a version of that Snake Eyes, and I think it is the most expensive of the versions, and I doubt I ever will have one. But that memory is still etched in my brain. Now, some of the great memories I have from this Kmart are, it's where I got the Night Raven when it came out. I remember hitting the CD and tape aisle when it came out. I remember getting the Live Undead from Iron Maiden on tape there. What were some of the other things? Boy, I can't remember. But they had a food counter in the front. Very reminiscent of the old days of a department store with a small luncheonette. But I remember we used to get subs there all the time, these cold cut subs. They were pretty good from what I can remember, but how weird is that, going to Kmart to get dinner? Nowadays, that's something to get laughed at, but back then, Kmart, cutting edge. It just hit my town, and it was like the best thing ever. I think it was the next year our mall opened. So up until that, we were still very, very small town. Now, number 2 on my list is something that wasn't really local, but I have a lot of memories over, and that's Kitty City. Now, I've understood later in life that it was a very big chain owned by Lionel. I believe the actual people that made the trains, maybe? I'll have to look into that. But the that was the biggest toy store I'd ever been in. And because we never went to Toys R Us because it was really far away and down towards Baltimore, and my parents were never driving down that way. Kitty City was located actually in the town that I live in now, and the biggest toy store I ever seen at that time. And the memories I have from there, I mean, I remember buying Alpine there, Airborne there, as far as G.I. Joe figures go. It was the place where I'm still scarred to this day because they had the Robotech Cyclone from Japan, the huge, nice one, and I wasn't allowed to get it, and I've been searching for it ever since. Because, oh, we'll get it next time we come back. Guess what? It wasn't there. So, that being screwed out of that still haunts me to this day. And I'm sure anyone that's read my site knows that because I've mentioned it many times. Excuse me. But the logo of Kitty City were the kangaroos, and I just loved it with the commercial where it'd be turn that frown upside down, and the kangaroo would jump on the frown and it'd smile. But I have such wonderful memories of that place. It was a place where it was my first awe of being in a store like that. That everywhere you turned, there were toys, there were bikes, there were Atari games, ColecoVision games. There were, I mean, things that I never had, but still there, like playhouses set up and board games as far as the eye could see. And they had D&D games and D&D figures, and oh, it just, if I could go back in time, that'd be definitely the place I would hit. Now, number 3 on my list is Woolsworth. We had a local one in town that it boasted that it was in the oldest shopping center in the county. Whoop-de-doo. Now, the thing about Woolsworth was you go in, and right there was a huge luncheonette with a bar, with the diner type seating. I mean, I never ate there. I always wanted to. As a kid, I always wanted to eat out. I mean, it shows now. But anyway, it had everything. It had a pet section that I loved looking at the fish and the hamsters. And it had a toy section that it had more of the B grade toys than it did of the A-list ones. I mean, I can't remember if they ever had a He-Man or G.I. Joe or Transformers, but they had other world figures. They had the generic dinosaurs and dragon, big plastic, you know, two-headed things. They had, I mean, coloring books. I remember they had coloring books out the yazoo. They had, also, one of my biggest memories of Woolsworth is that's where I got a lot of my trading cards, like WWF ones and whatever movie at the time, like E.T. cards and Star Wars, like the Empire Strikes Back cards, I remember. They had a huge candy section. But that was a place that had a little bit of everything, and I remember that was a place that we went to a lot. And one of the things I remember, the shelves weren't very high, so their toy section wasn't that vast. And like I said, it was made up more of the B grade toy lines than it ever was with the A grade. But great memories. I remember I got the, I'll probably get the name wrong, but they were Ninja Warrior figures, and they were made of like hollow, heavy plastic. And they had Good Guys, which were generic as crap. But the bad guys, you had like a werewolf, a lizard man, a skull-faced dude, a bug dude. And they were super cheap, and they came with cloth outfits. And of course, the only like generic human one I got was the dude in camo. I've talked before. I mean, camo. That was just a sign of the times with the movies we were watching and the different. Plus, being a boy, wanting to play army and running around in the woods and stuff. I mean, camo, camo, camo. But good memories about that store. Now, number 2 on my list is one that I don't know if you ever had in your town, but it was called Ames. And it was the proto version of the Kmart when it opened. It was the big quote unquote department store that had every type of aisle you could think of. I mean, arts and crafts, and it had your school supplies, pet food, I mean, house stuff, and clothes, and sporting goods, and fabric, and a little bit of everything, jewelry counter. And it had a toy aisle that had mostly the A grade stuff. It's where I remember getting most of my Thundercats figures, probably a couple G.I. Joes, but I don't remember which ones specifically, and He-Man. But that was a place that we would go to probably once a week because it was near the grocery store we would go to on Friday nights, and just spend hours in there. A big memory I have of there is clothes, of getting Rude Dog t-shirts, and I remember I used to get shoes there a lot, and like their big name brand, only a few of them did, was Voight. And believe me, I got harassed at school so bad because I don't think I had a name brand shoe until I was in high school, and that name was Body Glove, which to me, reading like the Trans World skating magazines and surf magazines and stuff, Body Glove was big in my book, so I wore those things with pride and promptly got my ass kicked all over the place because they were these neoprene sneakers that look like wetsuit material with the Body Glove logo. I would wear them today with pride, but back then, yeah. But anyway, I remember Ames being like where we'd get shoes a lot for me because they were super cheap. I mean, everything from when I was a little kid to with Velcro shoes up to tying shoes like the Voight sneakers and these generic red ones with Velcro and crap all over the place, which were really big in the mid to late 80s. But I have a lot of fond memories of that place. I mean, their craft aisle, since stock didn't hardly moved, had, I remember, the paint by numbers, Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and you could get those big, like, I guess they were plaster statues of like G.I. Joe characters and stuff, that you painted, came with little paints and stuff. But that's a store I don't know a lot of people had in their area. I mean, like in PA, they had Hills, and I can't even think of any of the other ones of that caliber. One of the things too is I remember they had a huge aisle of model kits, cars and monsters and Star Wars scenes and things like that. I remember, I don't know if any of you remember this, but it seemed like every shelf in those areas of a store were stained with different paints. Like either people just opened them up to be jerks or they wanted to test what the colors would look like or whatever. But that's a memory I'll always hold with me, is just how the shelves had different metallic paints spilled on them and stuff. Oh, and I remember they had a huge Hot Wheels section, a lot of cars and stuff. But that was a place too I saw the Thunder Tank and never got it, and always wanted to. Even though later in life you learn that it's kind of a disappointing toy because it's nowhere near how awesome it was in the cartoon. Now, my number 1 on the list might be really weird, and I'll tell you how weird it gets, but Montgomery Ward, or Wards. we would have to travel to one of the other towns close by to go there until we got one in our mall, which it was nowhere near what it was. But they had a very big toy section there. I remember Inhumanoids there, Spiral Zone toys, which I was lucky to get one. Dune toys when that movie came out. And I remember not knowing about the movie, and the toys like unnerved me, like the Sting figure that came with the weasel or whatever and a cage and all kinds of weird stuff. But they had a very big toy section, the one I'm thinking about. And to this day, it's weird, but I still have dreams about this store. And I don't know if it's because I had a connection to it with my grandmother, or just because to me it was like where the cutting edge toys were. My grandmother got me there, which still so special to me to this day, but Doc and the G.I. Joe snowmobile, which I can't remember the name. I'm horrible with the vehicle names for some reason. But Doc and the snowmobile I got there. And Doc is still one of my top G.I. Joe figures of all time because of that trip. And the snowmobile, long gone. I remember I broke it. But that Doc figure I still have complete to this day because it meant so much to me. But that was where I saw a lot of toys for the very first time. Visionaries, I remember being there. But of course, let's see here, look at the list. All of them are gone except Kmart, which is slowly fading into obscurity. But these are gone. I mean, unfortunately, this isn't a place where I can go, hey, I want to relive that moment and step through the doors. No, they're gone. Long gone. Heck, malls are starting to disappear across America. It's, I mean, as weird as it is, but stores have just as much an impact as what we bought from them, like the toys or the clothes we wore. The actual stores are now a moment in time that are gone. Anyway, I know this is kind of a short episode, but I had fun reliving some of these memories. And I wish I could go more into detail, but like I've mentioned in the past, these are more feelings than words. It's hard to put into words the things you feel. Like now I feel goosebumpy because I'm stepping through the doors once again to these places, and there is a little bit of sadness because, like I said, you can never go back. But anyway, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for next week with the launch of Season 3, and I think you're really going to enjoy the topic that we tackle. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what some of your favorite stores were growing up and what memories you have attached to them. Hit me up in the comments. If you liked what you saw, subscribe, and every week we bring you a new show like this one and some other ones. So thank you very much for watching. Keep being rad, stay dorky. Catch you next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit the subscribe button for some more awesome videos. We also have a couple here on the side you might be interested in. And until next time, thanks for watching, keep being rad, and stay dorky.